Hey, I'm Mr. Behork, and today we are doing solving multi-step equations. So I wrote out a general kind of list of solving, and keep in mind that when we're solving, it really actually doesn't matter how you tackle the problem, as long as you do the right thing to both sides of the equation, you should end up being okay. But in general, this usually helps to make things easier. So when you look at an equation, the first thing you try to want to do is simplify each side. So what does that mean? Well, if you see anything to distribute, you should do that. Okay? If you see anything to combine, like combining like terms, so if you see like a 2x and a 3x, you should make that a 5x if they're being added. So I'd like to think of step 1 right here is kind of like clean up. Clean up everything first. Then for step 2 and 3, that's when you start moving stuff around on both sides. Okay, so this is when you start moving stuff around on both sides. You could go ahead and do some of these things before you clean up, but it just generally tends to make things easier if we follow this kind of path of solving equations here. So let's start out with an example. So example 1. And let's say we're doing x plus 3x plus 5 equals 41. So my first step is I want to simplify each side. So I see some like terms to combine, so I should do that first. So x plus 3x, that's 4x. So now I have 4x plus 5 equals 41. Now undo any addition and subtraction. So I see a plus 5, so I should subtract it on both sides. So 41 minus 5, that's 36, equals, these cancel out, so I'm left with 4x equals 36. Now we have a nice, easy one-step equation, so to divide both sides by 4, x is equal to 9. And that's our answer. And we can check that really, really fast. And please do that. So x is 9, so 9 plus 3 times 9 plus 5. So, okay, well, 9 plus, let's see, 3 times 9 is 27. So 9 plus 27 is 36, plus 5. Hey, that is 41, so we got that right. Let's do example 2. And let's go with magenta this time. Example 2. Alright, so for example 2, let's say we have 4, and then in parentheses 2q minus 7 equals negative 4. Alright, so first things first is I see some distributing, so let's do that first. So 4 times 2q, that's 8q, and 4 times negative 7, that's negative 28 or minus 28. Alright, now we can add 28 to both sides. So this cancels out, leaving me with 8q equals negative 4 plus 28, that's just 24. Divide both sides by 8. 24 divided by 8 is 3, so q is equal to 3. Now remember, that's not the only way to solve that. We could have gone about that a totally different way. So let's go back to the beginning. 4 parentheses 2q minus 7 equals negative 4. I see a 4 times something, so why not divide both sides by 4? These cancel out, leaving us with 2q minus 7 equals negative 4 over 4 is negative 1. So let's add 7 to both sides. I've got 2q, these cancel out, equals 6. Negative 1 plus 7. Divide both sides by 2, and q equals 3. So you can see that there's other ways of going about these problems to get the same answer. Okay? So it doesn't matter, as long as you do the correct thing to both sides, you end up getting the same thing, because q can only be one number. Okay? So it has to work that way. Let's move on to another example. Let me erase some of this. I'll leave up the steps, actually. How about that? So let's do example 3. Yeah. So example 3. Let's say I have 44 equals negative 5, and then parentheses r minus 4, and then a minus an r. Alright, so first things first, I want to simplify each side. So I see some distributing, so let's go ahead and take care of that. So 44 equals negative 5 times r, that's negative 5r, and negative 5 times a negative 4, that's positive 20. And then I still have my minus r, don't forget about him. Alright, so I see some terms I can combine now. Okay, those terms look like they are negative 5r and this minus 1r. So let's say negative 5r minus 1r, that's going to be negative 6r. And we still have our plus 20. So let's go ahead and subtract 20 on both sides. These cancel out. 44 minus 20, that's 24 equals negative 6r. Divide both sides by negative 6. We're going to speed through because now I think we see the light at the end of the tunnel. Sweet. And r equals negative 4. And that's our answer. Cool. Alright, so now I want to move on to a different type of example. Something rather interesting. Let's say the sum of 3 consecutive integers is 42. Find the integers. Whoa. So it's kind of like a word problem, but you really need to know your vocabulary. So what we're looking at here, it says the sum. The sum. So since that's the sum, that means I'm going to be adding some numbers together. That's what sum means. And the result is going to be 42. I just don't know what I'm adding yet. I just know the sum of these 3 consecutive integers, whatever that means, is 42. Okay, so what does this 3 consecutive integers mean? Well, consecutive means one after the other. So, for example, 1, 2, and 3 would be consecutive. 8, 9, and 10 would be consecutive. Negative 10, negative 9, negative 8 would be consecutive. So, let's say the first number is n. I don't know it. Well, whatever the next number is, the second number has to be n plus 1. Yeah, so if the first number was like 1, then the next consecutive number would have to be 2. So 1 plus 2. Yeah, 1 plus 1 is 2. Alright, so the next one would have to be then n plus 2. Okay, that makes sense. So pretend the answer was like 1, so 1 would be n, and if I put it in here, 1 plus 1, that's 2. 1 plus 2, that's 3, so 1, 2, 3. Consecutive numbers. So I've written a way to write consecutive numbers using a variable. And this I can solve. So let's go ahead and clean things up. I'm going to get rid of the parentheses because those kind of confuse a little bit. So let's say n plus 1 plus n plus 2, oh my gosh, equals 42. Well, there's definitely some like terms here. We got an n, and an n. That makes 3n. And I see a 1 and a 2, and that's 3. So 3n plus 3 equals 42. And that's definitely a two-step equation that we can definitely solve. So I'm going to switch back to yellow. Let's subtract 3 on both sides. 42 minus 3, that's 39. We're left with 3n. So we divide both sides by 3, and I'm running out of space. I hope you can see that. 39 divided by 3, n equals 13. But I'm not done. Remember, the problem asks find the integers. So the first one is 13. So the next two, and the final answer would be 13, 14, and 15 are the 3 consecutive integers that add up to 42. Alright, I'm Mr. Bork, and this was Multi-Step Equations.